we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom! And welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Hemp Hill Farm. That's HEMPHILLPHARM.com. Check them out for all your CBD needs. I am Jeff Stanfield with, kind of funny today, the man who nicknamed you world famous Andy Shaver's on with us today.
That is right. I forgot about
Ryan
that.
Barnes with Wildfowl magazine. Ryan, how are you, sir?
You're the man responsible for this.
I am, and I'm great, and I am so glad that anytime I I listen to the podcast, I'm so glad that you're still the world famous Andy Shaver. It just brings a bright spot to my heart.
Yeah, I don't know. It's taken on a life of its own, you know. But better to be called that than a lot of other things, I guess.
I was listening to my granddaughter and Andy's oldest son were talking. I think we were in the Boston airport, and Reese said something about world famous, and Dylan goes, "Is he really world famous?" And Reese goes, "Well, actually, he is, and that's really his name."
It's on my birth certificate, right? Yeah. I got that right on my birth certificate there.
So you are the assistant editor for Wildfowl magazine. Did I get that right, or did I screw that up?
No, close enough. So I'm the associate editor for Wildfowl magazine. So I do all of the digital editing on Wildfowl's platform, as well as I help Skip Knowles put all of the print stuff, and we refine that and then make sure that that's all, there's no grammatical spelling errors, all of the art looks good before we send that out and it hits people's mailboxes.
Are magazines starting to make a comeback? Because I miss magazines and I miss newspapers. But I tried to read a newspaper about a year ago, and everything I was reading I knew already because of my phone and social media, so it was boring. But a magazine is different because a magazine is never set in a present time. So are magazines starting to make a comeback now?
Yeah, so actually magazines, if I just got back from a big meeting where print is starting to make a comeback. I don't know if it's all of the young hipsters that are wanting to, be cool and read print, or if, because like with me and digital has a completely different audience than print. Digital has a different news, a different, just a completely different element than the stories that get told through a magazine. And a lot of that's by design, right? So we talk about, like, the last 2 stories I just released through Wildfowl Digital were one, there's a big avian botulism outbreak in the Klamath and Tula Lake National National Wildlife why the hell can't I think of the National Wildlife Refuges? Holy shit, that took me way too long to spit that out. And then the second one I just released was a waterfowl number survey. And those are prime examples of what we would release on a digital platform, because they're quick, they're easy to read, take about a minute to get through, and they're just quick, easy, informative. Yeah. Whereas with the print side of things, we go through, we release these, 2,500 to 3,000 word stories that, they're informative. They are exactly that. They're stories, right? Like Jeff, you wrote all those Cletus and all these stories for us. Mm-hmm. And those would be, prime examples of what would make a good print story. They're well written. They bring an audience in. They tell the story of what someone would want to read. Sit down and actually go through with artwork and read about when they're like, okay, I want to actually sit and be in the blind with these guys. I want to travel with these guys. I want to envelop myself into this story. And that's what someone who subscribes to a magazine wants to read. And we are seeing those numbers climb up higher. And yeah, I would say that definitely print is making a comeback. And like as far as newspaper goes, so my first ever writing gig was writing for a local newspaper. And I recently just ran into the editor of that newspaper, and I asked her, I was like, so how's it doing? And she said, like, there are certain months when they go into the black, they're making money. There's other times when it's about to die. So I don't know how well newspapers are doing. And granted, this newspaper is on a very, very small scale. Right. But as far as like the hunting industry goes, I would venture to say that print is still alive, especially like you look at Peterson's hunting, you look at Wildfowl, and Field and Stream. Like Field and Stream just had a giant shot in the arm. I think that print is still very much alive and doing well.
Well, it's got a place, you know, like, and you framed it about perfectly, you know, because everybody's on Twitter and they're going through their news. So like from the digital side, you want something that is quick, punchy, like you said, a minute to read. You're sitting on the shitter and let's read about avian influenza or botulism or whatever it is at Klamath Basin. Got it. You sit down with a magazine and you're much more invested. Your time is, you want something with some layers in it that you can invest in.
And you love looking at the pictures.
You're right. Right.
I mean,
yeah, and that's something like we focus on.
The pictures.
Well, part of my job as an editor is making sure that the photography, the artwork, is very top tier. Like we care about the content, we care about the writing, obviously, but we also put a very big heightened focus on the photography, because if the photography sucks, then no one really cares about the story being told. Because you can read a really great story, right, but if the photography isn't there, that makes the story a little harder to read.
Is that something that you've picked up over the years, or is that something that you kind of naturally have to know, like, okay, this is the picture that we want? Or are you always like second guessing yourself? I would be terrible at that job, because if you gave me two pictures side by side, I'm fucked. It's going to take me a while to make a choice.
I am very lucky because Wildfowl has a very talented art director.
Yeah.
That he's able to pick up on that type of stuff. And so Skip Knowles, the editor-in-chief, he also is really good at knowing, like, this picture sucks. And I look at it and I'm like, boy, I thought it was really good. But other times, like, I'll look at a photo and just be like, well, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Like, I think that photo really kind of is bland and boring. And I mean, all it is a picture of flying ducks. Whereas this photo really ties into the story much better. So we have three people that we can bounce ideas back and forth off of. And we're able to tie it in a lot better. And then we make sure that, like, we'll go through it all. Like, we go through each column or each feature 3 times, sometimes 4, to make sure that it's, you know, like, all the artwork, all the wording is something that a reader would really tie themselves to.
How much time is there in each like volume of a magazine? Like,
oh shit.
You know, like you said the big August gear magazine.
Mm-hmm.
When do you start working on that?
We started working on that in the first part of May. So collectively, if I had to ballpark a number, I mean, over 200 hours, I feel it would say is safe to put into that magazine.
Good Lord.
Yeah, maybe more. I mean, but there were days when I started working on that thing at 7 a.m. and I wasn't done till 10 p.m. in a day.
See, and that's
And I
almost
mean, we still
unsustainable. You know what I mean? Because like you see so much, and you're like, I don't know what the fuck I'm looking at anymore. It's all just running together.
We would tell each other, like, Skip would have to tell me, like, dude, go to bed, rest the eyes, wake up in the morning and start over, because your eyes start to get tired, and you're like, I don't even, exactly like you said, Andy, like, you're like, everything's blending together. I don't even know what I'm looking at. I need to back off and reset so that way I know what I'm even reading. Because at this point, like, some of these stories I've read 3 times.
Yeah.
So it's almost like I'm reading a recitation. So you're just like, okay, I know exactly what's coming up in the next part. I know exactly what this story is. So it's good to back off, go out, go to lunch, go to dinner, and come back and do it over again.
Yeah, look at something with fresh eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the way I get
it. I mean, yeah, because if you're not looking at something with fresh eyes, then I mean, it's easy. It's easy to look over mistakes too, because that one word that you haven't realized is misspelled, you'll look over it and read it again and read it again and read it again, and then you get yelled at for fucking up and having a mistake in there.
Yeah, I get that because I write all the descriptions for the podcast and our new series that's out on YouTube, The First Family of Waterfowl. I write all the descriptions for it, and I cheated last night because we tailored the format this season to where we are kind of trying to get into that binging mode. So we have 12 episodes. We're releasing them in 4-episode blocks, and I uploaded all of them yesterday. So I had to write 4 separate descriptions, and like by the 4th one, I was like, motherfucker, like my words are just not coming out. So I went to Chat GPT. I typed in, write a YouTube description for 3 generations of brothers that hunt in West Texas. It spit something out. I said, that's good enough. I changed a couple words. That's a description that I used for the brothers episode because I was done. I just had nothing left.
How does that, I am curious, how does the Chat GPT thing work? I know how it works, right. But like, how does it work as far as spitting out a good description?
I can pull the description up that it came up with. So yeah, I mean it's pretty. I didn't know much about it. I kind of played with it a little bit last year. And like the more specific you are about what you're wanting from it, the better results that you're going to get. So like if I would have put in, write me a YouTube description with 10 keywords that are going to optimize, search engine optimization and all that bullshit, about 3 generations of brothers that hunt in West Texas. I'm going to say ChatGPT had a lot better of a description than I could have come up with. I'm trying to pull it up right now. Starlink is being a little bit slow at the moment. It might be quicker if I do it on my phone instead of, oh, no, here we go. Okay. So ChatGPT said, experience a rich legacy of goose hunting in West Texas through the eyes of 3 generations of brothers who have mastered the art and craft of this thrilling sport. I could have changed that a little bit. In this exclusive video, we take you on a journey through time with the family at the Big Honker Lodge, where tradition, skill, passion runs deep. This is what I added. Jeff and Tony, the original brothers who started it, pioneering their way through the rugged West Texas landscape, discover how they laid the foundation for family legacy that blends tradition with innovation. Then step into the boots of the 2nd generation, the sons who took their father's legacy and propelled it into the modern era. Finally get to know the next generation, the grandkids who are now being brought up in the previous generation's footsteps. So I took some liberties. I changed some words around, but 80-90% of that is what ChatGPT spit out. So it's not terrible.
So,
I mean, it would at least give you like a starting off point of what you wanted to write about.
That is what terrifies me,
right,
as an editor and as a writer.
Yeah,
is that there is AI out there that can write pretty solid articles.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get that there are certain things that ChatGPT can't write.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's stuff out there like Grammarly or ChatGPT that can make not necessarily jobs like mine, but people like me or people like like freelance writers, they could make us obsolete.
Yeah.
It gets a little scary when you think about that.
100%. Yeah, like I said,
Because
it spit that out in less than a second. Like I hit enter and it was
yeah. I mean that, and I'm sure with no grammar mistakes, it was probably pretty perfect. And I mean, luckily there are times when you do need the finesse of someone who knows. Because I mean, one of my favorite quotes that came when I started freelancing was, you got to know the rules of writing to be able to break the rules of writing.
right. Yeah.
But that it does worry me that stuff like that does exist.
Well, and what's bad about it is the more that we use it, the smarter that it gets. You know what I mean? Like it's as dumb now as it's ever going to be. The more that people are asking it questions and prompting it like I did, like it stores all that information. It's just going to get better and better and better and better. Yeah, I don't know what the future is, but it's definitely scary. Maybe now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I should get off of Chat GPT. don't feed the machine anymore.
Help save my job.
Right? Yeah.
We're at a scary place with AI. I'm telling 100%. You, bad, scary. Like
I saw videos on Twitter the other day, and it was all AI. You would never know unless you like dissected that video. But like if you're just casually scrolling, you would never know that it was not a blonde-haired girl making a YouTube video in the mirror with her phone up. You wouldn't know.
I saw a video of the new Lakers coach ripping on Bronny James and his dad, which the guy's not going to do that. But you would not know.
AI.
Yeah. But if you did not know that was AI, and it was amazing, people put this ain't real, this is AI, and people still, I can't believe he would say that. He's racist and blah, blah. Pay attention, but people don't pay attention.
It's going to interfere with elections coming up. I guarantee you.
They can make Kamala or Trump say something that they would never say.
I don't think it's going to be in this I don't think it's going to be in this election just because.
But it's coming down the road.
I think in 2028, I think you could definitely start seeing AI becoming a factor in elections. Like all it takes is one Republican saying the N-word and like his career's ruined, and like it wouldn't even had to been from him. It could have just been AI, altering his voice and having a deep fake video. It's getting scary.
What scares me is if the AI ever decided that they want, we're going to be living the Transformer life before long. Now,
Terminator.
There's not going to be diesels turning into freaking robots and shit like that. Ain't going to happen.
Don't say that, Jeff.
But,
never say never.
But we are going to deal with these drones, these cars that don't need drivers and stuff. It's scary where an AI what they could do if they really wanted to. Our nuclear weapon systems, everything.
So and this is way out in left field. This has nothing to do with any magazines, but there's an AI expert, and somebody asked him, I think it was Lex Friedman, which he gets into the weeds anyway, but he asked him, what are the odds that we're living in a simulation? And he said, I would put it at 95%. At what we see.
What?
Yep. He said, I would put it at 95% that this is all just a simulation. We got so far advanced, and it's basically like, what's that game? Sims. We're just projections on somebody's screen.
I wish whoever's controlling my ass had fucking
right. We got the wrong end of the stick.
Would do the banking better, Throw them coins in that bag or that purse or whatever it does, where you get to collect all the money at once. I want that.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, he put it at 95%. Now you can take it or leave it. I personally leave it, but that's what he thinks. So that's his.
A lot of people think we're living the Truman Show, and I've never seen the Truman Show, so I don't know what that even means exactly, other than it was a
Jim Carrey movie. I don't know. I'd have to look.
I think it's about a false video. Everything's a video game, basically. Our whole life is, and he's a politician, maybe or not. I don't know, but I've heard that many times. But it's definitely a screwed up world we're in right now, and it doesn't make anything easier.
Going back to that, like, what's to stop somebody from using these resources and passing it off as their own? And it's really just a search engine or Chat GPT or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there could be people that get jobs that don't need these jobs that are just using this as their way of getting in the door. You know what I mean?
Oh, I mean, you have to. I want to say moral integrity, right? But there ain't a whole lot of moral integrity left right now.
No, well, we're absent of that.
Yeah, right. I I would think personally, like if someone were to say, okay, write an article on someone going out and duck hunting and having a successful hunt with this, and this, and ChatGPT spits out a story, and they send it to us, we would catch most of the stuff that ChatGPT misses, like this, and the certain small nuances of a story that aren't included.
Right. The authenticity part of it.
Right. That's a great word. The authenticity. And then when you miss the authenticity, you're probably not going to get your foot in the door.
Right.
But, obviously if they're going to that effort, they can also edit out and they can rewrite what ChatGPT missed. But then again, it's also like, then what scares me is ChatGPT can write a resume like that.
Yep.
And not that there's anything wrong with using that for, because there's people that you can hire someone to write your resume.
Mm-hmm.
There's people that make a lot of money writing resumes for people. And I can't say that there's too much difference between going to someone saying, hey, can you write my resume, to then paying ChatGPT. You don't even have to pay ChatGPT to write your resume. But, using this new technology, where I'm going with paying ChatGPT to write a resume is it can put stuff on there that you have no business actually listing on a resume.
Right.
And then when you get into this, all of a sudden you're like, oh, shit, I have no idea what really I'm doing. And it listed it on my resume.
Right.
So I have if it lists on there that you're proficient in using, Adobe Photoshop, and then you get in there and it's like, yeah, can you please, move this histogram? Can you please cut this and link this so that way we can, use these two linked photos on our website? And you're sitting there going, I have no idea how to do that. Yeah, you might be stuck in the weeds a little bit.
Right.
And using artificial intelligence as a way to get your foot in the door, or as a way to get into a job, it can be a dangerous method and a dangerous way to do it, because then all of a sudden you're asking a company to pay you usually a large sum of money, and then they did it all based on the fact that more or less you lied on a resume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's, and like Jeff said, AI is a dangerous, dangerous game to play. And the more we use it, like you say, Andy, the smarter it gets. And that's where I think there needs to be some sort of way to either restrict it, even though government restriction is another dangerous implement.
Yeah, slippery slope.
And it is. It's a slippery slope. But boy, I wish that it would. I wish that there was some way to either make it go away or make it so it can't just be abused like it's being abused.
Right. So in the time that you were answering that, I had I'm back in on ChatGPT. I had ChatGPT. I said, write me a 3,000 word article about duck hunting in Nebraska with the latest gear of shin gear and Boss shot shells. And it's done.
Are you kidding me?
It's done. So I'd have to read through this. Nebraska's position in the Central Flyway makes it a prime destination for duck hunters. The Central Flyway is one of the 4 major flyways. So like that, you're kind of, I don't know about that. But anyway, shin gear and the revolutionizing of hunting apparel. Shin gear is a relatively new player in the waterfowl hunting market, but it's quickly made a name for itself, offering high-quality, innovative gear designed specifically for serious waterfowl hunters. Their Shin gear's commitment to durability, functionality, and comfort is evident in their products, which engineered to... Anyway, it talks about the chest-mounted zippers, and then it goes on to talk about Boss shot shells. And Boss shot shells is known for bismuth-based ammunition, which offers several advantages over traditional steel shot. Bismuth is denser than steel, which means it retains more energy and delivers more consistent patterning at long ranges. This results in cleaner, more ethical kills, which is a top priority for responsible hunters. And then it goes on to duck hunting strategies in Nebraska. So, like I said, 3,000 words. It would take me a while to read through that, but that's just kind of the highlights. As you were answering, I was kind of like skimming through to pick up on keywords that was spitting it out.
So luckily, that actually does make me feel better, because if someone sent an article like that to me,
it would seem fake.
That's something that we would never. I would never pay someone for that, because it's like,
right.
Well, we already know that.
Right.
That's all stuff that's apparent.
Yeah.
You're not telling me a story. You're just giving me catalog copies and information that people already know.
Right.
That's not a story I want.
Right.
But it will get smarter. It will get to the point where instead of just throwing random facts at me, it might actually tell me a story of what it's actually going to be like and how well Shin perform. But that's one thing that AI doesn't know.
Right.
Is it doesn't know what it's actually like to be in the water with shin gear waders. It doesn't know what it's like to actually crumple a goose at 50 yards, and what it was like to watch it fall to the ground, and the excitement you felt, because AI doesn't know what it's like to feel excitement as you pull up with 3-inch 5s and thump a goose, and that feeling of carrying it back.
Yeah.
Obviously, it doesn't know that. It never will.
It can't play on the emotions.
But, emotion. And that's what reading a story is about, is the emotions and the excitement and all of that. That's what ties a reader to a story.
Yeah. And then duck hunting strategies in Nebraska, scouting and location, decoy and calling spread. So, I mean, all that's pretty basic, generic type shit. Hunting ethics and conservation. So I'm sure talks a little bit about Ducks Unlimited. So, I mean, yeah, it's pretty rudimentary in that, just because, like you said, it doesn't have the emotion. It doesn't have the experience. So, yeah, I could see where it's not a biggest problem right now for storytellers.
No, it's not. And like, I haven't played around with it. I mean, my sister passed. This is actually another thing worth noting. Shit, my sister passed her freshman and sophomore year of college using Chat GPT.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, the big one for her was, you can take, there's an AI system of Chat GPT, and it's not called that, but you can take a picture of a math problem, and it will spit out all of the ways to solve it. So she can just write it down, and it does her homework for her.
That's crazy.
Obviously, that's not going to help you on a test, but it's going to help you with all your other homework that you've got to do.
Right.
And that's where it's dumb. Society's already, we're getting dumbed down enough. But what happens when even my generation, right? But all of these, I don't even know. I'm a millennial. What's the generation younger than me? Gen X, Gen Z,
Gen Z, I think.
I think it's Gen. What happens when these Gen Z kids, they've been able to live off of, well, shit, they're still going to be able to live off of it, right? Technology is going to help them all the way through. So maybe it's not going to be that big of a problem. But it's just, I want to say it's making them dumber.
Yeah.
And maybe so, but they're always going to have the same technology.
Right.
So I guess, and Jeff, I'd love to hear your thoughts. But is it going to make them dumber, or is it going to allow them the ability to accomplish more and be smart?
Today's kids have no fucking life skills. None.
I had to know he was coming in off the top rope on that one.
It's just fucking deal. We got an 18-year-old kid working out here now. He's got life skills because he grew up as a country kid.
Right.
He don't know how to clean up after himself. But
That'll come. That's an age
But
thing.
he'll learn that. But when it comes to being able to do stuff, he can do things, and that's rare to find these days. This sounds absolutely horrible because we have a lot of young listeners, and I like young people.
But you?
They are so.
Do you?
Yes, they're so.
I think what you're about to say is going to make it seem like you don't like young people.
the people today under the age of 25 years old,
Okay.
it scares the shit out of me when they're 30 years down the road like I am at 56. Because they don't have any appreciation of anything before. They don't know how to do shit unless it's on a cell phone. They don't know how to talk to people. They don't know how to deal with any kind of conflict because everybody tells them yes all the time. And I think we're in a really scary time for our future. I think when this last generation of older people, and when I say older people, I'm talking about 38 up. When that generation's gone, the next generation coming up, it scares me when they're in charge of everything.
Can I push back a little bit though?
Yeah, you sure can.
I feel like every generation meets what is required of them, whatever that is. And for right now, it's these phones and the technology that we have.
And y'all have mastered that. There's no doubt about it.
So the question is the old way of doing things still going to be relevant in 30 or 40 years? Is that handshake going to be as important as it was 20 years ago to get a job? You know what I mean? Having personal relationships. The human in me hopes that never goes away. Like I always hope that I'm going to be able to see Ryan Barnes at Squad Fest and shake his hand and have a relationship that way. So the human in me, I hope that never goes away. But with the more Skype, like these interviews right now, like I'm looking at you face to face and we're having a conversation, and the way that COVID propelled that to where people don't have to go outside and go to their cubicles anymore. They can stay in the house and they can do everything from their laptop. So I don't know that human interaction is going to be as important as it was 20 and 30 years ago. That's
a really good point. Everything you said is a good point. And sadly, as we age and get older, we reminisce and we appreciate the old things. And it's happened to the people that were before me. When I was 18 years old, my dad was in the situation I'm in now at the same age, basically. And I was like, fuck that. That's stupid. That's a bad way of doing things. There's a new way. I'm guilty of it in some deals. I sell hunts all the time to people I never talk to anymore.
Right. And that was not a thing. Like 10 years ago, you were on the phone with them.
Visited with them all the time. Now I get a text from a guy say, hey, this is Jack. We hunted with you last year. We want the same dates. Okay, I'll send you an invoice. I send him an invoice. He sends me a picture of his credit card front and back, or they PayPal you money, or they send you a check or whatever. I don't ever speak to them.
Right.
They know the system. They know how we do it. I hate that part of it. It's easier for me. I like that part. I just hate the part of not shaking hands and visiting. I like to talk to people. But we live in a cubicle world now, and it scares me for later on down the road. I'm scared we're dead. Young kids will never own homes. They're going to live with their parents forever. I mean, just the whole concept of our whole American dream has changed, and I hate that for our country. I really, really, really do. So I'm not a fair person on that, but I think if you ask anybody my age, probably 8 out of 10 people my age feel the same way probably. You got your 20% people that are either way to the left or they're just more open-minded about things, and they go with the flow. Just like your newspaper, talking about the magazine. I enjoy reading a magazine the old-fashioned way. I like grabbing it, sit down in my chair, and thumbing through it. And I miss that. I miss reading a newspaper, but there's nothing to read in a newspaper because I already know it all, because it's either all on TV or it's on my phone or my laptop. And so it's breaking news and you know it all the time. But I worry about our future when it comes to being so disconnected from each other with the human touch and all of that stuff. So I call them generation dumbasses, and I'm pretty safe with that. Anybody under the age of about 25 down, and it's not all of them. There's a lot of really good ones. But I must tell you right now, the higher percentage of really good people under 25 live in small towns. And I would take that to the bank per capita on people that are going to be successful and do things with their life are country kids.
Strong statement.
So I'm going to that, Jeff, mainly because I think just look at what kids in small towns have to do, right? Most of them are required to work hard. There's stuff that they are forced to do, but there's a big gap in what is required of kids in small towns and kids that aren't. but then Andy brings up a good point, because like I take, for instance, this new job that I've got working at Wildfowl. I didn't meet my new boss. I didn't meet Skip until like 3 months prior to having been hired. Mm-hmm. I sent an email over. I sent an email. All my interviews were conducted over Skype, and so I still had to have, social skills. I still had to know how to write an email. But and it is sad. Like I enjoy having a conversation. I enjoy being able to talk to someone in person. And is that a lost art. Being able, as for not even the young kids especially, but even for older people, it's starting to become a thing of the past, being able to just shake someone's hand and say hello, introduce themselves. If they can't send a text and be like, hey, I'm so-and-so, like, how are you? I mean, there's people that'll text someone in the same damn room and not be able to introduce themselves. But there's definitely an evolving way to communicate. And I'm 5 feet from the office where I work, and I don't socialize with the people I work with. I send emails, I do phone calls. I don't talk to the people I work with face to face. And it's hard. Mm-hmm. It is real hard for me because I can't, I don't have the ability to interact, and the whole working remote thing, it sounds glorious. It sounds fun until you're actually doing it. Because, boy, it's tough to not actually be able to talk to people. But then there's kids nowadays, they're like, that's all they'll ever know.
Right.
All they'll ever know is working remote. All they'll ever know is being able to send an email, send a text, and then that's how they'll work. And obviously COVID had its hand largely in that. But there is being able to hold a conversation, being able to look someone in the eyes and talk, that is going to be something that unfortunately is a dying art.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, I'm even thinking about my kids in this. My kids are fortunate because they are around so many people. They're out at the hunting lodge 5-6 days a week. They're interacting with people out here. But I think like to the other kids that are my kids' age, they go to school, they come home, they only see mom and dad outside of school or wherever they are. So they're not meeting strangers, and meeting strangers is a tough deal. You know what I mean? Like you said, sticking your hand out, looking them in the eye. Hey, I'm Andy Shaver. It's nice to meet you. And you go from there. So they don't have that at a young age. And then when we were young kids, and like Jeff can really attest to this, there was not options as far as entertainment. You know what I mean? Like, I see my kids and they're watching YouTube, and it's like they're watching something that I have no clue about. But whenever I was a kid, our options were limited, so we could talk to people based off of, like, if my kid went up and talked about television to a 65-year-old man, they're not going to have any fucking clue what they're talking about. But whenever I was a kid, like, you had your rudimentary stuff, your Scooby-Doo and all that other stuff, and it progressed later on in life. And of course, I was always involved in sports and paid attention to that, so I could always talk to adults about sports, but kids aren't going to have that anymore.
I remember went to a hunting show, and Andy probably was 10 or 11 years old, and he wanted to sell something so bad.
Oh, it would piss me off.
He would talk to people and talk to people and talk to people, and they would go.
I couldn't close.
And he was not a closer. and they would come to me, and I would close all the deals always.
Piss me right off.
And he'd get so worked up. Well, finally, one time he had a guy that Andy actually closed a hunt on. Andy had to be about maybe 11 or 12.
Still waiting on my commission, Ryan.
But it made his it made his day that he had someone that interacted with him. But he tried. He talked to everybody. Today, it's hard to find those kids. I wrote a deal on Facebook, a post not long ago, and I was talking about people that are lonely. And I said, there's nothing more lonely in the world than a 10-year-old kid that wakes up, goes to school, gets on a bus or does public transportation or walks to school, doesn't talk to anybody at school because he don't fit in, comes home after school, opens a door, unlocks a door, TV, phone, computer, laptop, whatever he's on, does not have any interaction with people till his single mom comes home at 8 o'clock at night from working all day, and she talks to him for just a minute, and then she goes and takes a bath and goes to bed, and that young man lays in that house by himself all day long. And that kid does that 7 days a week, and the only time that he's even around people is when he goes to school. That's lonely. That's what we have in our society. And I'm not
mass.
Yeah, tons of that. And I'm not saying that didn't happen when I was a kid, because I'm sure it did to some degree, but it did not do it that often, because that kid would have had a little more interaction at school. He would have had to talk to people somewhere. Well, nowadays he don't. If that kid walks home and is looking at his phone, he don't have to speak to anybody. Nobody's going to say hello to him. How are you doing? John, how's your mom doing? Is she sick? Well, they'll say nothing.
He can do everything. I mean, he can order dinner that night and not talk to a single person.
And that right there is a red flag for our society, I think. And everybody's responsible for it.
Sure.
But I feel sorry for but there's millions of people that do that. There's old people that live at their homes that don't do nothing. Michelle told me one time when her grandfather died at a pretty early age. I mean, comparatively, I guess. Well, her grandmother, when her grandpa died, her grandma died. She lived 20 more years. She didn't do nothing. She went to church, got her hair done, and looked forward to any kind of family dinners, because she got to be around her kids. She'd get so excited about Easter dinner, she'd start cooking the sumbitch in February usually. I mean, she was excited about it. So, but we live in that kind of society now, and I feel so bad for the next generation of people. My youngest son is not near as social as my older two are. Payne's not, and he works in a computer and he does stuff like that all the time. He don't have to, but he don't deal with people a lot of times, and he likes that. And I don't understand that. I like being around people. I can be by myself. It doesn't. You could give me a cabin and put me in the mountains for a week.
You're so full of shit.
I could do that.
You fucking call me when you're driving down the road.
I don't like being in a truck by myself, but I could be in if I don't have a cell phone or something, I could survive by myself for a while. But most people, a lot of these young people don't have no problem with it.
Right.
I like talking and I like visiting. I don't care if I go in a convenience store. I like to visit with people and talk to them.
It's going to be a lost art.
It is, because not very many young people do that, and I wish we would. And I don't know what the answer is.
There's not.
But it's just we move with technology, and we have for years, and we're going to continue, and there's going to be another trend and another trend coming. But since 2000, we've really gotten to a place in our country where we have too much time by ourselves with a device.
Yeah.
There's a caveat, Jeff, you ended with right there that I think is very, very important with a device. Kids can be alone, right? But if you were to dump someone, right, if you were to say, all right, go camping for a weekend, and they're like, oh, great, you get all these hippie granolas that think that they can go live in a van and, do all these things. Great, more power to you. But if they don't have access to their device, spiraling. They can't do it. I mean, and there's, like, if they can't sit and plug in and watch their YouTube or the whole TikTok stuff, then it's a bad deal. And that's where it's like, I think that's where the issue is like, if they can't numb themselves, like emotional numbing is what I would call it. Like, you can't plug into YouTube and just brain rot, then they can't do anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's the dangerous game we're playing, is like, you can't just sit. There's kids that literally can't look up from their phones. And there's kids that have to have some sort of entertainment instead of going over to their neighbors or going over to somewhere and doing something. And that's no way to live. But I mean, then again, there's also kids that are making millions of dollars just filming themselves living everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't get how society is going to function like that. But hell, I don't know. I don't have the answer either.
I'm an Instagram guy, and I like looking at Instagram, but I like watching different. My Instagram thing's really crazy, but my go-to thing right now is Parkwood Deli. It's in New Jersey. It's a guy that's got a deli. I'm giving him a plug. I'm trying to get him on our podcast. He has a sandwich of the day he makes every day at his deli. It's an Italian deli. They do catering. They have all kinds of stuff. He makes a freaking sandwich. I watch it like crazy. I love the deal. I like the way he interacts with his customers,
right,
and the whole thing.
Mine's a potato guy in Scotland.
A potato guy. And then I have a guy in California that scrapes off house numbers on the curb and repaints them. Oh. He scrapes them off. He'll put a Raider, a Laker. He can put a Dallas Cowboy, whatever you want in L.A. He's making a living painting street numbers on curbs. I like his stuff. I watch it too, and it's something about him I watch. But I like technology for that thing. But I wish they would do a social experiment, and I wish they would do it in two ways. I wish you would take a small town in Nebraska. We can say Olagala. And cut off Ogallala, however they. You take off all their internet. You take off the internet and cell service for a week, completely out of that town, and then you go do the same thing in San Francisco or a big urban area. And I would like to see the difference, how people by day 5 have adjusted to that, because we stayed in Maine this year, and our house we stayed at, we didn't have very good Wi-Fi. It was spotty. That was my only complaint about the whole place we stayed. And I told the lady about Starlink, because it's what we have at the lodge. I said, you ought to try it. She goes, I'm going to think about doing it. We didn't have much internet, and our cell service, we were on Verizon, was spotty at best, and we were in the mountains outside of Conway, New Hampshire, right on the Maine-New Hampshire border. My grandkids, once they realized within an hour that they wasn't going to be able to use their iPads and stuff unless the Wi-Fi was working, it would come and go. They got used to it. It wasn't that big a deal. We all got acclimated to it. Andy needed to do some work. I needed to do some work. So there was some moments there, but we got acclimated to it. But I would love to see the difference between a small town in Nebraska and a big urban area, because I think the people in the small town in Nebraska, after 3 or 4 days, they could get their life together again and get used to it. The big cities would have a harder time getting people to realize that you're going to have to learn to live without this for a little bit. I don't know if this makes any sense, but I would love to see what would happen on that, because I think the people in the middle of the country could adapt to no internet and cell service a whole lot quicker than people in big urban areas could, because they're the way we're set and we're raised.
Oh yeah, no, and I think you're spot on. I would be interested in that myself, but I get thinking about it. And it's funny, because here I am criticizing people that can't look up from their phone screens, and my dad's got a premier deer tag here in Utah, and most of the scouting we do, we have no service. But then there's a little knoll we get to. We're up high enough, we get service, and all of a sudden, as soon as I hear my phone dinging and whatnot, I go through, I check my texts, I check everything, and then boom. It seems like my thumb just automatically, Instagram, Facebook. And as I think about that, all of a sudden I'm wondering, like, oh, shit.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am out in the middle of nowhere. I'm supposed to be enjoying, looking for deer and looking for, just being out in the wilderness. And I'm scrolling through Instagram and I'm scrolling through Facebook. And so, I guess it is a little hypocritical of me to be judgmental, as I'm saying that people can't live without social media, and they can't live without that type of stuff. But then as I look back, it's like, oh,
yeah,
shit, I'm doing the same thing that I'm criticizing. So it would be tough. And it is tough. It creates an addiction for sure.
100%. I'm guilty of that. Like turkey hunting, I catch myself. I had a real epiphany. One of the last times I took my boys out turkey hunting, and I had a rule: we're not taking any devices. You're not taking your Switch. You're not taking an iPad. We're gonna enjoy this chasing of a turkey. Which, if turkeys are not gobbling, it is the most boring fucking sport ever. It is awful if there's no action. And it was later in the year and the birds have calmed down. And here I pulled out my phone and I had to stop myself. You know, I was like mid scroll and I'm like, you fucking douchebag. You just made them leave all their stuff at home. And now you're going to sit here under the same tree with them and pull out your phone and go scroll through Instagram.
My dad never did that when I was a kid.
Right. I mean, I was like, you're a hypocrite. Everything that you just stood for, that you put your foot down at the house and like, no, we're not doing this today. You just wrecked all of it. You have the words ring hollow. So I put my phone back up and.
That's the first time you've caught you doing this?
When I was hunting with them, when it was supposed to be like a moment that I was going to have with my boys.
You know how many times I've heard you and your wife tell those kids, no pads, no tablets, no nothing. And I look over at y'all and y'all are on y'all's tablets at the house doing it.
Well, Jeff, you should be a more entertaining guest.
All right, Andy. So here's a question for you. I'm going to kind of redirect, but not really. So back in March, my wife and I just had our first baby.
Congratulations.
We just had a little baby girl. And
your life is forever
we've talked
changed.
about like, what's
your
that?
life has forever changed.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, we've told ourselves like, hey, you know, we don't want to be the ones that, you know, put a tablet in front of our kid and, you know, just say, okay, here you go. Just and I'm sitting here like, but are we really? So how hard is it how hard is it to stand by your guns until all of a sudden you're just like, you know what, here, watch, you know, Bluey or whatever.
Right.
Well, I actually have to go and get work done.
Yeah, that's something that me and my wife don't really have to deal with a lot. Just because, well, okay, let me put it this way. We do have to deal with that. The iPad is a huge issue. We always limit them to an hour of screen time. They both started school. Jameson had his redshirt year last year, and Jameson's my youngest one. He's very easy to like redirect and like, hey, just go play in your room. I'll open the curtains for you. It'll be bright in there. Just go play in your room. So he's easy to just kind of go off and do his own thing. Reese, on the other hand, if he does not have some sort of stimulants, he's pestering my wife and I. Hey, let's play Monopoly. Let's play Clue. Let's do spades. It's like, no, you need to entertain yourself. You've got a brother here. Go out. They got a bunch of those little poppers left over from the 4th of July. It's like, go out and make a racket with those. I don't give a shit. Just do something that's not in my hair. So we've done a pretty good job of limiting that hour. It's not an hour and hey, put it up. It's, you know, it can be an hour and a half. Sometimes, you know, if we're not paying attention, it can be 2 hours. But we don't let tablets interfere with like dinner time or anything like that. If we're out at a restaurant or something like that, you're not going to be that kid that is, you know, not socializing with everybody else and just sitting on their phone the whole time. So in that regard, I think me and my wife have done a pretty good job, but I also don't want these things to be foreign to them either, because this is the world that we're living in. They need to know how to operate an iPad, you know, video games. I'm sure that's corrupting his mind, but I'm sure he's getting something out of the deal. Hand-eye coordination, maybe, I don't know, but it's the world that we're living in. And I don't want them at 13 being the first time that they see this technology. So it's a slippery slope, but I know a lot of people, like, it's a bad day if that 3-year-old doesn't have the iPad.
Reese is 9 years old, and I'm telling you right now, this is the honest to God truth. If I go in a room and I need some help with electronics, he's who I ask.
Yeah, and that's good. That's going to be valuable for him one day, hopefully.
Yeah, he set up. We're remodeling our home right now, and it's been a disaster. So our main TV and everything's out. Well, I took DishNet out of our house completely, and we were going to all go to streaming. Well, we watched TV in one room, so we hadn't hooked any of the others up. Now all the TVs in the other rooms all have Roku or Fire Sticks. Reese hooked them all up. He knew what he was doing. Right. I don't know how to do it. He knows how to do it all. So it's a good thing that he does learn this. He needs to learn. And what you said is exactly right. That parent out there that's taking all that stuff away from him and don't want them to touch it at all, they're not helping themselves for later on in the road. Right. It's a Todd Marinovich deal. I know you guys don't know who he is, but his daddy was a pro football player. He played at USC. He was a quarterback. He was the Knicks' great phenom coming. He played in the NFL for maybe 4, 5, 6 years. He grew up. He never got to have a hamburger, a Coke, or anything. They had him on a strict diet.
Like Christian McCaffrey.
Well, Christian McCaffrey has been a better.
So this is not a good example. Okay,
No.
go ahead with yours.
Todd Marinovich was a first-round pick, but he never got exposed to cocaine and marijuana either.
Till later in life.
And so once he went to USC and got out of his parents' house, he went batshit crazy.
Right.
But he still made it to the NFL and played for a little bit. But he had a lot of problems with foreign substances.
Right.
But I did read that about Christian McCaffrey too, that he did not have any bad
7:30 bedtime until like college.
Fucking nerd.
Dude, I read that about Christian McCaffrey. I thought my dad was, pretty strict and regimented, but holy shit, McCaffrey, that was could you imagine if he didn't make it to the NFL?
Oh my God.
Well, you know what his parents screwed him out of? Getting to bang a bunch of hot co-eds when he was growing up, when he was a star.
Right.
Star football player.
I bet he made up for it. I bet he's done well for himself later in years. I mean, he didn't marry an ugly girl.
No, he married a really pretty lady. I can't remember her name, but she's a model.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Like if he hadn't done what he's done, oh my God.
There's a lot of kids like that grow up with such a thumb over them. And it's a fine line. It's easy to sit here. I'm not by any means saying I was a good parent, because I probably was not a good parent, but we tried. And there's a lot of people, but it's hard for those people that put that thumb on that kid to be able to take that thumb off and let them live, because it's hard, because you don't want your kids to make any mistakes that you made, but they need to learn by the mistakes that you made, because that's how you learned.
Yeah.
I mean, me and Andy argue about this a lot, but I think the kids that were raised in the 60s and 70s that had more freedoms and shit and done a lot of stupid shit seem to have been better, well-rounded adults because of that.
Well, it's funny. I'm listening to an episode of the Sean Ryan show. He's got a guy on there. He was in charge of BUDS, the SEAL training. And before he got there, there's like they call it the O course, and like by the end of it, you're shot. Your legs are done, your forearms are shot. Like it's designed to do that. But anyway, there's like a rope slide, and for a while, if somebody fell off of that, you're up 20 feet or something like that. But like if you fall off, you're gonna hurt yourself. So what they did in an effort to not get anybody hurt and safety measures, they put a net under this rope slide. And what they noticed, when the net was there, more people fell off of the rope slide than if they didn't, than if that net wasn't there. So he's like, it's one thing to teach a kid, to tell a kid how to climb a tree, and it's another thing for a kid to actually go climb a tree. So get them out,
Well, if you're going to fall off, I've read a book and they talk about the rope slide. It was when I read Lone Survivor. Yeah. Marcus Luttrell talks about that. I don't know if the net was there or not. He doesn't talk about it, or I just don't remember. Right. But it's interesting. I didn't know that about the safety net. But it is one thing to, if you're going to fall and hurt yourself, you're going to hold on a lot tighter. Right.
But if you know that net's there and it's going to soften your blow, you're like, I'm tired. This is as far as I can go. And that's where you fall. Yeah. But, just like Jeff was saying, and I'm seeing a lot of these things because, like I said, my youngest he went to kindergarten today, and that's a big moment in a parent's life. And, you're kind of coaching them on what to do and how to, just not make the same mistakes that you made. But it's like at the end of the day, like he's just got to go out and figure it out on his own. Like I can only push him so far, and he's just going to have to go out there. He's going to have to learn rejection. He's going to have to learn how to get along in that class environment. And that's just something he's going to have to pick up on his own. And he's a smart kid, and he's going to do fine. But as the parent, you're always wanting to kind of bubble wrap them and shield them from, making the same mistakes and doing anything that they're going to regret later in life. But at some point, the bubble wrap's going to have to come off, and they're just going to have to learn these things on their own. And that's a hard thing for a parent to do. Like, you think about sending my little kid off to, I'm not crying, I got a Zen in my mouth. Sending my little kid off to go get, potentially made fun of or something, you know what I mean? Or his hair's whatever. That's a hard thing, but that's something that he's going to have to overcome one day. And I can't protect him from that forever.
The hardest part about being a parent, and you're going to go through this with having a daughter. We never had daughters. The hardest thing that you'll ever go through raising a kid, and you ask anybody that's raised a kid, I don't care if they're an 80-year-old person or they're 25 or 30 on their first kid. when you cannot fix what hurts your kids.
Right.
And that's the hardest freaking thing. I don't care what it is. Your little daughter is going to be the apple of your eye. You're going to love her and you're going to do everything for her. And there is some little jackass fucking kid right now at his house that's
4 months
6
old.
months old, and he is going to break your daughter's heart. He is going to call her a bitch. He's going to do something.
Or vice versa.
Or he's going to touch
She might cut his nuts off.
Well, that's going to happen too, because it happens to boys. But boys are going to be like, listen, everybody gets their heart broke. We'll go. A girl, it's a different deal. It's a bad deal. You're going to go through that shit, and there ain't nothing you can do. And then that little bastard's going to come over to your house after he breaks her heart, and he's going to be nice to her, and you're going to want to choke the shit out of him. But she loves him more than she loves you. And being a parent, that's a hard deal, and that's a tough thing. I want to switch over real quick. Jordan Peterson, your doctor, you talk to all the time. Is he been arrested and having to go to school to be?
Yeah, he's got some re-education program he's got to go through in Canada for his social media stuff.
That's the biggest bunch of shit ever. That's scary.
You're talking like Jordan
Peterson. He's having to go. I think they took away his doctorate or something like that. I've not paid that much attention to it recently, but I did see a little clip where he's having to go to re-education training.
That is some Nazi German bullshit right there.
Yeah, one of his last posts, it was about that. To be able to keep certain statuses or whatever within Canada, he's got to go to re-education training.
Have you seen in the UK now, they're arresting people for making Facebook posts or Instagram that aren't woke, basically. And they're arrested. Now, one of those fucking towns over there, I don't understand all the hierarchy with the damn English people. Mayor, a governor of a little, well, I don't know what the hell it is. But anyways, he says in America, I was on his Twitter, if you're an American, we will extradite you and file charges on you and make you come over here and put you in a camp. I put in there, I said, jackass, I said, you limey bastard, I'm in Texas. Go screw you and that limp-wristed freaking president or king you have over there. Bunch of evil fuckers, and everyone in the royal family ought to be arrested. And I signed my name and put where I'm fucking at. He can come find my ass. But it just scares me that we're at a point right that where this Dr. Peterson, who's one of the most well thought of, educated people in Canada, is having to go to school to get re-educated, so he can talk in public because he doesn't fit into the Trudeau system. That is scary. And that has nothing to do with raising kids. I just read that and I thought about that.
Well, and when I was talking about all that, Jordan Peterson always says that having a kid is the female version of the crucifixion, because you bring a kid into the world knowing that it's going to get broken down. And that's exactly right. You know what I mean? Like whenever I shipped that kid off to school today, it's like, all right, buddy, I've taken you as far as, obviously there'll still be life lessons, but it's like, I've taken you as far as I can up to this point, and the rest is on you.
You know what's bad is you drop Jameson off today as a 5-year-old.
6-year-old. He had a red shirt.
6-year-old. He got a red shirt, but he's a pre-K kid. He's a sharp
kindergartner.
Kid. Or he's in kindergarten. I mean, he didn't go to pre-K, but he went to kindergarten. He's 6 years old. You're going to send him to school again the first day of school for the next 13 years. And every year at the first day, you're going to get a picture, and mama's going to be a little sad. And you're going to get where you're not that sad because he's out of the house for half the day. At least you're happy. But when his senior year gets here, and he goes to that, like Tony today, Kylie's graduating. She's a senior this year. And they did a sunrise for the seniors breakfast and stuff. When you get in that car and you start that truck, and Tony come to this lodge by himself, he was killing himself on the inside because he's a single dad, and he's a really good single dad. And his whole life has been around that little girl.
Yeah.
And next year she's going to be in college, and Tony ain't going to have any fucking clue when she comes in, what she's doing, unless her debit card, she uses it, and he'll know about that. And she'll never have to have him as a daddy again unless she's in trouble.
Right.
And that's a hard thing for parents. And this time of year is really tough on a lot of people. And I feel for every one of y'all that's got kids, because I would give anything to go back to them days for about 30 minutes. I mean, I say that all the time, man, I would give anything to the boys to be small again and do things. And then I think about us road tripping to Las Vegas and shit. And I'm thinking, there ain't no way I'm putting myself through that shit again. Yeah. I mean, you
know what I'm really scared for?
What's that?
Is junior high age.
Yeah, that's terrible. My wife talks about it.
Kids are assholes.
Oh.
And my wife is.
Dude, junior high was just like, even I think of like myself and my friends, and if you come out of junior high with like an ounce of self-respect for yourself or like anyone else, you're a winner. Because those ages are rough. kids are mean, and they're getting mean.
Well, and it doesn't stop at school. This is why we're seeing an uptick in, and this is another thing you got to watch for having a daughter. It's not so prevalent in young boys, but young girls at that age, the bullying doesn't stop at 3:30 or 4 o'clock whenever they get home, because they're connected on these devices. And then now all of a sudden they're getting DMs from classmates like, you're just a piece of shit and nobody likes you at school, and be better if you just weren't at school tomorrow. And then these people, these young people take that at face value, and they're committing suicide and doing things that are just horrendous. So I mean, the bullying doesn't stop at 3:30 like it used to when we were in school. Like, it goes well into the hours, and I mean, it's a bad deal. So that's another reason. Reach just yesterday asked when he can get a cell phone. When we think you need one.
When is that going to be? When he gets
15 or 16?
No, you ain't. I'm telling you right
Maybe
now.
14.
I'll bet you. Ryan Barnes, you're gonna listen to this. I'm gonna bet Andy $10,000. $10,000.
It's done. You can fucking you can say 30 for 10 grand. It's gonna happen.
Okay, $10,000. Reese has a cell phone before he's 15 years of age, and I'll give you 3-to-1 odds on that.
15?
Jeff, I will.
3-to-1 means 30,000. There is.
I'm pretty sure you're gonna lose that.
I'm promising you, he's gonna lose it, because the first time that he has to go out of town for school in something, which will probably be in 6th grade, probably so in 6th grade, and about the third time he don't have a phone, and you're going to say, we're going to have to get him. He needs a phone for this kind. And you're going to give in just because he's going to need it.
If you'll make it 14, I'll take that bet.
14 what?
14 years old.
All right, you got a deal.
$10,000.
Yeah, you owe me 10. If he loses,
you owe me 30.
Yeah, at 14
I don't
years
want to
old.
fucking take your money.
Yeah,
I don't want to take.
It ain't gonna happen.
Jeff, you'll
That
lose
would
that.
put you in the. You don't know
No.
my wife. My wife is so far in the anti-phone and tablet camp. Like, if
I
she
see her on the phone all the freaking time.
If she said that we could win $30,000 from this bet, that poor kid wouldn't get a cell phone until he's a senior. If that's
Okay, I'll make the bet with her.
You're screwed if you go with her. 'Cause
No, I'm
she's
not.
way more strong-willed than I am.
She is, but I would point out every
Way
time I
more.
see her on her phone jacking around when she's at our house and those boys are there. I'd be like, see, there's your mom on her phone. You're
14.
gonna catch so much
14.
peer pressure from your own child over this.
I don't care. He's little. He's little. I can kick him.
At 14, he's not.
He's little.
At 14,
he's tiny.
Reese's gonna be tall. He's gonna
I
be
can kick his ass.
Yeah, 14 years old. That kid, no. You'll never. You won't do that to yourself. You'll get sick of hearing this shit. Now, first of all, Andy would lose the bet anyways, but he would never pay me because I would never let him pay me, and he knows
I would never
that.
let you pay me that amount. That's an obscene amount.
You're
of
not
money.
going that way anyways.
Well, we'll just have a friendly wager of "I told you so." That means way more to me than monetary gain.
I'm gonna bet. What grades are you in right now?
4th.
I'll bet you within 18 months he has a cell phone.
You're high.
Okay,
I
we'll
would
see.
I would take whatever amount of money you're willing to lose, but it ain't 18 months ain't happening.
Ryan, when I post on the deal, well, Reese got him a cell phone. You'll know.
will not be 18
months. Yeah, it will be because he's gonna be the last kid in his class, and he's gonna start throwing that in your face.
That's fine.
Okay, we'll see. But 18 months, he'll be in fucking 6th grade, and that's when it happens.
So I got my phone, and I graduated in 15. I got my first cell phone when I was in 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how old I was.
Probably
how
14,
old are
13, 14, right around that age.
you? Yeah. That's when I got my
14,
first cell phone.
yeah.
Andy was 16.
I was, but cell phones
but
weren't. I graduated in 06.
I didn't get my first cell phone until I was almost 30. So, I
Right.
mean, that's all fucking relevant. Andy was 16 years old when he got his cell phone. We got Andy a phone, and then Zach started lobbying to get a phone.
at 11.
Yeah, or about like 10, about like Reese. I think Zach got one at about 13 years of age. And then we got the $1,000 when you had to pay for text.
Right.
And so he worked for goose season when you're out here paying for his text billing for that month. And Payne was probably in 5th grade. So Zach was probably in 7th grade. Payne was in 5th, and you were a junior in high school, a sophomore, junior in high school as it went by. And that's about what I think you'll be with your kids. Probably the same thing.
Right.
About the same type deal. When kids start needing to go on bus rides for school and they don't go in until late, and then you call me when you get to the bus stop, at first it's going to be like, ask your teacher to text us and let us know when you're going to be here. That'll happen about 2 or 3 weeks, and then finally it'll be like, we need to buy him a phone so he can
here's
text
my
us so we
question
can
to
keep
you,
up with him.
since you're on my ass. How did you know when we were at the bus station?
We didn't give a shit. You can walk home. We wasn't nobody going to fucking hurt you anyway.
But y'all were always there. You always knew what time to pick me up. I never had to call you to say, "Hey, I'm here."
Oh, that's, my ass wasn't just getting there when you did. We sometimes I waited 45 freaking minutes for them slow driving assholes to get there. We would count, but we went to every one of y'all sporting events.
Right.
So I knew I was going to get home 45 minutes before the bus.
Right.
But
this is one thing I didn't take into account. When I went on a bus ride or when I got dropped off by the bus, I was like 5 minutes from my house. I was in walking.
Well, we live in a town that's small.
You guys,
no,
a field trip or a bus trip, I can't imagine that's a short tilt away from.
Well, when we come home to where they at the school's not but a 5-minute walk. You can walk anywhere in Knox City, be there in 10 minutes. I mean, it's a little town. But we would go 70, 80 miles away. When I was in high school, we played against all the Metroplex schools. So it was from Wichita Falls. We were 2 or 3 hours, but nobody had no phones. Nobody knew about a phone. You just went with the flow of shit. I thought about that not long ago. I was talking to an old buddy of mine from high school. When we used to go out at night, we used to cruise the street all the time. Well, one of my buddies, he was fancy. He was a rich kid. He'd stop and check the cell phone, not
Pager?
cell phone. No, he would call from the payphone and call and check his answering machine at home. And I had 4 or 5 buddies that had answering machines at home. So if something was happening, you'd leave it on your answering machine, and then everybody could call and that kind of a deal like that. But we just, I don't know how we communicated, but we did. When I first years in the hunting business, we didn't have. Hell, I remember I used to send all my invoices by mail.
Right.
I was talking about the other day a price of stamps. I don't ever mail anything. I mail shirts and stuff that are shipped, but that's different. I can't remember the last time I mailed a damn letter, an actual letter to someone.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I don't do it because it's so much easier to be on a phone texting somebody.
You know, in all of this, I've kind of realized that I think with all the advancements that we're making, I think your job's going to be easier because I think you're going to be able to sniff out the real ones. You're going to be able to sniff out the kids with experience and the kids that know what they're talking about, not just on a superficial level of scratching the surfaces of whatever it is that they claim to be an expert in, but you're going to be able to spot fakes even easier now with all this.
Oh yeah. And that part for me, like, if you're a good writer, we in the industry, you probably we know about you, but okay, so what about for you guys? Let's shift. Mm-hmm. And this has been something that's been around. What about for a guide? How do you sniff out a good guide from a bad guide?
Tough.
I'll tell you this year.
Right.
My last 8 hires I've hired, I've been about 5 for 8. One of them lasted about 45 minutes. And then I had 2 that lasted all season that, I mean, I'm not going to rip on nobody, but I've been really lucky. Last year we had a new kid, Nolan Devine, came in. He's done an excellent job. So I was really happy with Nolan. And you never know what you're going to get. Because
you can be anything on Instagram.
Yes.
You can be a certified killer on your Instagram, and it can just be the same pile pick, posed a different way, and standing under a different tree. So,
and I don't like hiring a guy that's guided a lot of places. I don't like that. I don't want to hire a guy over 30 years of age. I'd rather hire a 19-year-old kid, and we train him to what we want. And it's the first year he's going to learn from everybody, and then the second year he's on his own a little bit, and the third year he's guiding hunts, and I get a 4th year out of him, and then he grows up and gets a real job and moves on.
See, and that's counterintuitive to what a lot of people want.
But that's what I like.
They want a seasoned veteran.
Yeah, and I don't want that. I don't want a guy coming to me that's been working for 15 years as a guide somewhere. And it's not all older guys, because we hunted with an older guy, Dusty Brown, in Canada. Dusty is a great job, a great guide. I'd love to have Dusty work for me. He does a good job, but he's a unicorn of the older guys, because most older guys, and it's not all of them. And me and Stacy Coker had this conversation in Baton Rouge. Is I don't want an older guy, and this is going to come off wrong, but I don't want an old guy that drinks a lot and is grouchy.
Right.
And that goes hand in hand with a lot of old waterfowl guides.
It's tough.
It is, because it's a tough deal, and I don't want that. I mean, I've got a 1 beer rule here. You can have 1 beer at nighttime on that. When you're not working the next day, I don't give a shit what you do. But if you're going to drink 1 beer, if a guy has 2 or 3 beers, I don't really care. I just don't want it. I don't want to be around that. And
you don't want to have a 3 beer limit and be a 6 beer limit.
And I don't want I don't want a grouchy ass guy that smells like booze in the morning talking to my clients. And I don't want them grouchy. And I don't like that. It's hard to find a guy like Mags that worked for us that does a really good job, that's older, that's got his shit together, that are responsible, that go to bed at 7 or 8 o'clock at night because he gets up at 2 or 3 every morning to get his work done. And I don't want the guy that stays up drinking with clients till midnight. I like a young guy and train him to go the way we want. And I'm telling you right now, it's a hit and miss deal a lot of times, and you don't know until you get him here. But I want a kid that'll work. Like Hunter that works here right now. I can hear the deal. He's doing something. He's fixed. He's a worker. He's a country kid and a worker. He's going to make a great guide. He talks a lot, but so did Josh Moore. And I love Josh Moore. But he's a talker. He's a visitor. He does a great job, and he's not lazy. So he'll do a good thing because we'll train him the way we want him to. I don't want a lazy guide. But I can't give you a formula because my formula would be wrong because I hit on just a little bit over a little over 50%. I counted up the other day. We're sitting at around 70 actual guides have worked for us since we've been in business. And I had 4 guys that worked for me for 8 years that were all together. So we went through a big period where I didn't have a lot of new guides. But I've had 70 guides work for me, and I'm going to say out of that 70, probably 40 to 45 of them were really done a really good job. We had some shitty ones there too, but about 45 to 50.
Of the 70, how many would you hire back?
Probably 50 of them or more. Probably 50. There's probably 15 guys I wouldn't hire back.
You got a handful of turds that are like, no way.
Wouldn't even be close.
Wouldn't even be in the conversation. And you got a couple guys that are on the fence.
Yes. And then, but 50 of them I would probably bring back in a heartbeat as a young person. Matt Sullivan, for example. Matt Sullivan at 18 years old was the biggest pain in the ass I ever had work for me. He wasn't lazy. Right. He was funny. He could talk to people, and he was a great hunter. But his mouth overran his ass a lot of times. If Matt went to work for me now as an 18-year-old, Matt wouldn't be any problem at all because I would have a lot of conversations with him.
Right.
And he would be a great guide because he's funny, and you could harness that.
Well, you were only in your 20s.
But I was young. I was 25, 26 years old.
Right.
And the guys working for me were either older than me or the same age as me. And so I was friends with them. Now I'm friends with my guides, but I'm a father figure type to them. Or a grandpa figure maybe even. But they look at me different. If I tell them something and I really get on to them, they listen because I don't get on to very many people here. I really don't. There's very few people I ever get on to out here. But I'll talk to you. And it's a tough deal dealing with the younger people. But our business is different because the young people that want to do this are kids that hunt and fish. They're outdoors, and that's a different breed of cat than the average 18-year-old kid. And
so is the guide, I think I asked this on the last podcast that I did, is the guide that comes in, some famous Instagrammer that, he's been out, he's hunting, killing a lot of birds, and then all of a sudden he thinks he's a guide. Is that someone that's tough to deal with?
No, I don't deal with them. I don't mind a kid that has the Instagram and stuff, but I'm not going to hire some guy just because he's got an Instagram with a bunch of likes.
We've never really hired that person. No. We've never really hired the guy with 20, 30, whatever number of Instagram followers. That's never been like a prerequisite for us. You know what I mean? It's always kind of... We've gotten lucky. Yeah, we've not hired that guy that's the big influencer yet.
Because that guy's coming to work for us, to represent us, not himself. I
guess I shouldn't phrase it like that, but how many guys do you get that think that that guiding is just a glorified hunting job?
That does happen.
Yeah, but we knocked that in a pretty quick when you get here. You can check your ego at the gate. When you come in that gate, it says Stanfield Hunting Outfitters. If you're not part of the Stanfield family, you're not important on that because someone else can do the same job you can. I'm not saying the guides aren't important. They are. Blake Poppy's a big part of our family. Blake don't have an ego. I've had young guys come in here that thought they fucking could walk on water.
That's not what he's asking. He's asking how many guides come here and think that they're going to be hunting every day. And there's a difference between hunting every day and guiding every day.
My guys work every day. They're going to guide every day. You're not coming here to work as a scouter.
No, that's not what he's asking about. Trigger time and everything.
Oh, we tell them right off the bat. Like I told Hunter the other day, I said something about shotgun shells. I said, you're not going to need many shotgun shells because you're not hunting. And I explained to him this way. I said, we can kill 3 specks here a day is our limit now. 3 specks a day. Why should you go out 50 days and shoot 150 speckle bellies? What good is that? It don't do any good. And the guys that are shooting 8 small geese in Oklahoma, and those guys, the guides want to shoot too. Why, if you got 12 guys and you shoot 96 birds, why do you need to kill 104? It doesn't make sense. So my guys don't come here with the expectation they're going to get to shoot a lot. If that, I don't even know what the hell you asked, because everything I've answered has been the wrong one.
That was the right one.
But I don't know. There's nobody coming here that's got the pre-built in thoughts that they're going to get to shoot 5 cases of shells in a season. It's not,
or that they're the most important person
they're not
in the field that day.
Would you say it's fair? We humble them pretty quick if you're like that around here.
I think so.
Yeah, you'll get put in your place pretty quick here. We're easy to get along with and stuff, and that's why I'm going to miss Josh and Logan. I mean, them guys both were great hands, but they knew we all had the same. After someone's here a couple of weeks, everybody's on the same page pretty close.
The worst thing you can do as a guide is, if you're shooting, is to brag about how many you shot out of a flock. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I pulled a double or pulled a triple. It's like, fucking just
shut up.
Shut your mouth. Because now that can be perceived to the client as, well, 3 of those birds in that pile aren't ours. They're his. So we should be able to get 3 or 4. We should be able to shoot a couple more. That's just the worst thing as a guide. Number one, I don't recommend taking a gun out there unless you're hunting water and you're thinking you're going to have a bunch of cripples, or you're going to have cripples and you might need a gun that way. In the last, I'm trying to think. Since I've been married, I bet you I have not gone through a case of shells on a guided hunt. Now, there's been times where I fun hunted and maybe we had some teal hunts or some duck hunts that I shot a lot, but on a guided hunt in the last 10 years, I bet I've not gone through a case of shells.
And yeah, every outfitter's different too. There's guys out there right now, they're listening to this like, fuck, I shoot every day. That might
whatever
be,
floats your boat.
If that's y'all's deal, you do it. But we don't. That's not here. And my competitor, he's the same way. His guides don't shoot much,
right?
Because we want to be done. If we got 10 guys and we're shooting 30 speckle bellies, when we get to 30 speckle bellies, we're finished. Why sit out there to shoot 33 or 36? I mean, we don't do it. And that's our policy here. Every place is different, but I don't want to put that much pressure on the birds. And so why sit out there and put more pressure on birds when you're done perfect? If you shot a limit of birds, you're done. Mm-hmm. So.
No, I will take a gun just in case, like jams and stuff. I'd hate for somebody to be walking back to the truck needing another gun or something like that. So it's easier for me just to have a gun in the case and ship it on down the blind than some guy that's out here for 2 days and he's like, I got to go back to the truck to get my other gun. So I'll take a gun out most of the time. And
we have the guy that will be here that has hunted somewhere else where the guy let him shoot his birds. We get to shoot your birds too, right?
No, sir.
Absolutely not. That ain't happening.
That's a crime.
But we have that asked a lot of times, so there obviously are some places out there that they're getting to shoot their birds also. Mm-hmm. But we don't do it. Now, during dove season, like if Hunter takes some dove hunters out and he wants to stay and hunt with the guys, I don't care if he does that.
Right.
We don't. I mean, dove season's different, but we expect our guides to be guides, not hunters. If you want to be a shooter, then you pay for a hunt. You're not going to be working on one.
So that brings up, like, I then get curious, how many guys do you get that reach out to you like, hey, I want to get in, I want to be a guide. You know, what do I have to do to guide at Stanfield Hunting Outfitters? Send me
a resume like about 100 other people did this year and hope that you're the one I pull out of the paper. I just talked to my brothers, I guess. I have 2 younger brothers that my dad had. What's the word I'm looking for? He was two younger boys, Shane and Brody, great kids, and they're 22.
Don't get me lying.
I think they're 22. Shane, they're seniors in college. They're twins, and they're seniors in college. Good kids, great kids. And Shane told me that he was at a frat party in go school in Alabama. That a kid at the party, he had a Stanfield hat on. He said, Stanfield. He said, I applied for a job there, and Jeff wouldn't even give me a job. Mm. And I told Shane, I said, hell, I get 100 people. I get 100 resumes a year, and it's just. It's a luck of the draw unless someone highly recommends you, because every one of them's recommended by somebody.
Pull on Jeff's heartstrings. That's the way to get a job.
You get a ton of
pull on. Give Jeff a woe is me story, and you're hired.
Jeff
likes the underdog.
I'm a big underdog.
Jeff likes the underdog.
I was an underdog my whole life, so I feel for the underdog, and a kid that's real consistent that calls me all the time. and does everything I ask him to, usually gets a job because I either get sick and tired of having to answer my phone, or the kid really wants a job and I appreciate it. Well, we get a ton of people that apply for jobs.
Well, that's how one kid got a job. He was Jeff said, call me on Monday. He called him on Monday. Something as simple as that.
Doing exactly what I said.
Follow up. Like, hey, I'm out of town. Called him on like a Thursday or Friday. Jeff's out of town. He's like, hey, call me on Monday when I'm back in the office at this time. Phone ring at that time.
So you guys do, you get a ton. Well, I guess I can imagine that, but you guys do, you get a ton of applications to get there.
We have seriously, I get about 100 resumes a year of people, and people right now, they're going to ask me for next year, you need to send me a resume in February or March. I'm not going to hire nobody else between now and the season's open, but unless something happens. But we get a lot of resumes. I have guys in town will be like, man, I can't get nobody to apply for a job. So, well, I can get people to hire for water. Get somebody to come out here and work around the lodge, hard to do. Find a guy to be a guide, no problem at all. And our platform makes it easier for us because we're not just a regular guide service. And I'm not knocking regular guide services. We just get a lot more exposure, so it's easy for me to have people that want to apply for a job. You know?
Would you say that the podcast is, well, I would imagine the podcast has made that probably blow up quite a bit, right?
Yes. Yeah. And you'll get a guy that'll come here that just wants to be on the podcast and everybody know his name. And then you got guys that don't care about that. I gave Logan Bueller a job, Yoder, because he come on a hunt with us and he hunted here for 3 or 4 days. And I visited with him. He asked me about a job. He was a good kid and I gave him a job. Turned out to be a great hire. Probably the most uncomfortable person I've ever known in my life when it come to being around groups of people. And it took him a little bit to get over that. That turned out to be a great guide, but it was a hard transition for him, but he was a good kid and we gave him a job and it turned out great. Very, very happy we did that. Just an overall good kid. Josh Moore came to work for us because Blake Poppy, he had recommended him work for me because Blake and him knew somebody that knew each other or something. But anyways, Josh was a great hire. Josh Stoner come to work here because Andy and them knew him. I mean, that's how I get guys to work for me. Nolan came here because of Lawson that worked here, and Lawson was leaving. He said, I got a kid that could be a good replacement. And Nolan, it worked. But you never know. But if I can hire someone that the guides know, it usually works out better because they know, and most of them will have an idea of what they're getting themselves into.
And they've got a friend here.
Yeah, and that helps because there is some loneliness. And I think about that a lot of times with these guys. I thought, when I go somewhere and we're gone for 4 or 5 days, I miss my family. These guys are up here for 3 months and they miss their family. And we make it try to be as fun as it possibly can, but you're still away from home. That's why I like hiring young guys, because it would be really hard to have a guy up here with a bunch of young kids at home.
I couldn't go to Canada now. If you told me I could go to Canada for X amount of dollars for 6 weeks, there's no way. I couldn't do it. I couldn't leave my wife and kids, especially at this age.
No.
9 and 6.
No, that wouldn't be fair to those kids.
No way.
But a lot of people have to do that. They don't have no
but
choice.
At 21, I could have. You know what I mean? Because I didn't have anything tying me down. I'd have had my share of loneliness, but it's just different. People grow up and get responsibilities at home.
I still don't. I mean, yeah, I get how people do it. But man, those tilts and those guys that go and burn. I mean, I've got a buddy who he goes to Canada. He does his 6 weeks in Canada. Then he runs down to Arkansas, goes through the entire season in Arkansas. And then he goes back out to California and finishes out there late season.
No way.
And I'm like, dude, how are you alive? How are you still going by the time it opens up in, well, because Canada opens up
2
in
weeks.
What, like mid-August?
Yeah.
And then he finally finishes up by the end of February.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And a lot of guys
dude.
will do conservation season after that. So now you're going to almost April. We've said this and said this and said this. Josh Moore went and worked in Canada last year, and by Christmas time, he wasn't worth shooting here. And we told him it was going to happen. Like, that's too much. You've been going hard because, like, he had to be up there mid-August to brush blinds and do all that stuff and get all the prep work done. You're there mid-August. You're here November 1st. Well, like, you've just gone through a meat grinder up there because it ain't like scouting it is, in West Texas where we got a 30-mile circle and all the birds are going to be there. You're putting on hundreds of miles a day scouting in Canada, and then you do hunt, and then you got to deal with the birds. And like, I can remember, I've got a Patreon video that I'm going to put up later, and I'm telling him, like, you're not going to be worth a shit by the time December gets here. Because
He was December 8th. He was Christmas break tired when he got here already.
Like the first week, he's like, man, I sure am ready for a day off. It's like, what are you talking about? Been 4 days.
And he always used to beg me not to have a day off.
Right.
It was completely, it's
tough.
Yep.
It's tough. And I don't know how guys, I don't know how it's sustainable year after year after year, but guys do it. And we have not had a ton of success with guides that have guided in Canada and then come down here. January is just too hard of a month on them.
Well, I mean, honestly, most of the guys I meet that guide in Canada and they do those burner tilts from Canada to conservation season, I have not met a lot of them where there is not some sort of, foreign substance use keeping them down.
I don't know how they do it. I could, there's no way that I could do that. I don't want to do that. I will not hire someone probably that goes to Canada and works from September on. If somebody went up there and worked for 10 days, that wouldn't be that big a deal.
Right.
No different going up there on a hunt, but that's a grind. And to go to waterfowl hunt from September to like some of them guys that go clear into April, they have to be living on Coca-Cola, Red Bull, and Marlboros. I don't know how they do it. I really don't. And there's some that out there that do it. They're passionate and they love it, and that's their whole life. But man, I would get burned out so fast. And you can tell the guys, and I've had other guys that's worked for me that went to Canada too, and they're just not enjoyable to be around at the lodge or anything. I mean, it's a tough job. We all work together around here, but we all laugh and have fun, and you can just tell they're just wore the hell out.
Yeah.
And that's the way we all are by middle of January around here. Everybody's tired and wore out, but we got 2 more weeks and we'll make it. Well, I can't imagine your middle of January is Thanksgiving and having to say, well, I got 10 more weeks of this shit. There's no way. That's not good.
No, but yeah.
That's just, that to me, like, even guiding a full season, because when I was back in college, because Utah has, you can hunt swans in Utah. Mm-hmm. And so when I was in college, I would help guide swan hunts. And the swan season only goes till, realistically, it goes till mid-November, but that's when the swans push through. But it would end about early December. And by middle of November, you're just sitting here going like, holy shit, mm-hmm. I am gassed. Yeah. And so for the guys that guide an entire waterfowl season, I'm like, you guys they must clank when they walk, because I don't know how you do it. And then even those guys that do, when they run from Canada all the way through every season they can. And the one thing that always gets me is it's like, how does your gear take that much abuse?
Yeah. I've got an unfair advantage on a lot of people because I get to go home every night. I'm with my family. My family's out here most nights at dinner. So like I get recharged that way. But I could, if I were away from my family, and now granted, there's not a lot of guys mid-30s with a family that are doing it like I am away from home. It's guiding is definitely a young man's game, but I've got an unfair advantage on a lot of people. I get to go home, sleep in my own bed. I get to see my wife, get to see the kids. So
you got a separate life.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference. Going home, right? Even if you're awake an hour when you get to the house, it's still a complete separation, because it's always been that way for me, because I've never lived out here other since before the very first year. So I've always went home. When I go home at night, when I drive out that driveway, whether it's 7:30 or 9 o'clock at night, whenever it is, I'm free. My whole body is just like, go home, watch TV, whatever I want to watch, dick around, do whatever I want to, and go to bed. It's just a completely different vibe, and it gets you away. Just that little bit of time getting away from everything sure makes it a lot better for everybody.
Yeah. And I've been told I'm not the greatest husband during waterfowl season, but I try.
Well, that was just your neighbor's wife telling you that, so. Well,
so Andy, do you think your boys will guide?
If they want to. I don't want to push them to really anything. I think I've kind of been that way with sports and everything. I kind of want them to come about their passions naturally. If they want to guide, I would be stoked. I'd do everything I can to pass on as much information as I can. They're definitely going to work out here in some capacity, just because they're going to have to work. It's just the way it is. You're either going to work here or you're going to work somewhere else. So you might as well work out here. So, if they wanted to guide, yeah, I would welcome it, but it's not something that I'm going to push upon them. I don't, just because, and I don't want to do it with sports. I don't want to really do it with anything. I want them to figure out their way, and I'm going to help you however I can. And if it's guiding, that's great. If you want to play football, let's do it. If it's basketball, I don't know shit about basketball, but I'm going to help you however I can. But I don't want me to push this on them and it be them be chasing my dreams and not their own, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think about growing up, and I'd watch my dad hunt, my uncles hunt, and friends of theirs go out and hunt, and it was like, well, shit, I don't want to do anything else. Like, I love
it. Wasn't pushed on you. You came about it naturally. Same way with me. Like, I came out here, and the guides were all really cool to me and welcoming, and learning how to blow a goose call. And I've kind of talked about that a little bit. Just they welcomed me, and I fell into it naturally. Nothing was ever pushed upon me. Jeff never said, "Hey, you're going to do this," or He never said that to me or any of my brothers. Matter of fact, Payne, he didn't fall in love with waterfowl hunting like me and Zach did. So it just wasn't his jam, and that's okay.
Yeah, I want my kids to do what they want to do, what makes them happy. My dad was a dog trainer. I damn sure ain't gonna fuck with no dogs. That's the last thing I wanted to be, as a dog trainer.
But yeah, it's just I think I see I've really changed a lot since I've had kids. I've gotten to where I'm kind of anti-sports now. Like, I'm anti just parents being dumbasses. You know what I mean? Just like pushing their kid to throw a 75-mile-an-hour fastball when they're 12 years old. It's like, just chill a little bit. So I don't know. My views have shifted on quite a lot of things. And one of the things is I don't know, maybe I'm a hippie parent. I don't know. I just want them to find purpose and go after that, whatever it is. And I'm gonna be there to help you. If you want to do this one day, cool. Let's talk about it. If you want to go paint curbs for a living, awesome. Let's do it.
The guy makes a good living doing that.
You want to open a deli and make sling sandwiches for the rest of your life? All right, man. Let's talk about it. Let's get you in contact with somebody and let's go from there.
And Judge will come eat there all the time.
Yeah, Judge will be your number one customer.
I'll be all about that stuff. We've passed a point in America where kids are doing what their parents do too. You don't see that like you used to. Like, there was generation after generation or generation. My great grandpa was a fireman. My grandpa was. My dad was. I'm going to be policemen, truck drivers, whatever it is, electricians. And I think you're starting to see kids now are starting to. They're not wanting to do. They want to do what they want to do more. Well, some of them don't want to do shit, but I think.
Well, they didn't know anything else was out there,
right?
Like, they did. If your dad was a fireman and his buddies were all firemen, like, that's all you knew. You didn't know that you could go. You didn't know that you could go paint curbs for a living.
Yeah, you didn't. That's right. Your opportunities, your circle of things that you'd been exposed to were smaller,
right?
And that's changing nowadays, and so people are seeing different things. I wish I would have had someone. I love my life. I shouldn't say that, because I can't imagine me doing something other than what I do, because I love what I do. I do. But I also wish I would have had someone push me to go to Harvard, to go live up in the Northeast for a little bit, and or New York City. I'd love to have lived in New York City when I was younger, but I had nobody to push me to do that. And I'm not blaming nobody, but I wish I would have done some of that kind of stuff and had someone tell me that, look, listen, Jeff, there's a whole world outside of Wichita Falls, Texas. Go do it. But you did. You came here. Well, and started this from nothing. That's all. It's not like you. No, and I looked into all this. I'm lucky on that. But yes, I can't imagine I can't imagine my life as Jeff Stanfield not being in the waterfowl business. I really can't. I can't see me as some fucking lawyer living in Newport, Rhode Island.
Right.
But I want my grandkids the same as I want my boys to find what they want to do. Zachary is one of the most talented waterfowl callers I know. I wish he would have pushed himself to go to Stuttgart to blow on the stage, because I think he blows a duck call as good as anybody in the world does. But that's not his deal. Now it's to be a jiu-jitsu guy.
And he's very good at that.
And he's going to be good at whatever he does if he'll stick with it. And Andy went to school to tech, could have done whatever he wanted to do. I'd talked to a guy even at a good friend of mine had a couple of big Division I schools, could have got Andy a job as a graduate assistant coach if that's what he wanted to do. Andy didn't want to coach. Andy's doing what he loves to do, and Andy's going to be running this place. What scares me is when you get done running it, what's going to happen if the boys aren't interested? That's what's crazy about family businesses.
There's farms littered in West Texas that great grandpa and grandma founded it. Grandpa ran it, and I mean, there's an end date to everything. People that, houses. The house that I live in is not going to be in my family forever. It's just not.
That is a depressing.
Nothing lasts forever.
That is such a depressing thing to think about, but that is so true. That your treasures and everything you work for your whole life, one day is going to be discarded and junked by somebody else.
Dislodged. I mean, there's going to come a time where it is
whatever it's going to be.
It might be scraps by the end of it, but there's going to come a time, whether that's 50 years down the road, 10 years, 100 years, or wherever, there's going to be a time where the last person in our genealogy drives out of that driveway, hits 2279, hooks it left to Knox City, and that's the last time anybody from our family drives out here.
And that person's probably going to be happy as shit. Thank God.
Glad I got rid of that motherfucker.
Shit. And it's probably what's going to happen the way the world is. This would be perfect timing or the perfect way it would end here is it will probably turn out to be the Barack Obama re-education center that the federal government puts in. That would just be the crown glory for all of my thoughts. Me and dad are up in heaven, pissed off, boy.
His ashes are still out here, and it's just a big Democratic national convention. This is where they summer camp at.
It's just, you can imagine the ghosts, Jeff and everyone haunting it.
Yep.
We got dead hunting dogs buried all around this place, and we got Ron's ashes that are here, and it's a summer camp for the Democratic leadership. That's what it's going to turn into. Can you imagine?
Ryan, we appreciate you being on here.
Been a lot of fun, dude.
Been a great time. We'll see you hopefully in November for the hunt.
Yeah, I'll get in touch with you for that. That would be awesome. I'd love to come back out.
Yeah, that'd be great. It'd be great to have you out here. Listen, it's good to know that print is making a comeback. It's always fun to hear some of the ways of the old world are making a resurgence. So
I love to read and I love to write, so it's happy to see things like that happen.
Keep doing what you're doing out there, my man. If you ever need anything from us, just let us know, all right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Always good to
talk.
talk.
Have a great day, Ryan.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Yeah, take care, guys.
Wildfowl, a great magazine.
It is.
One of the true magazines, but it's a typical genre. You got to be in that genre. It's a great thing.
Find your niche.
Yep, there's not a lot of magazines left. Thank y'all for listening to us. God bless y'all. Have a great week.
Love you. Bye. Watch for deer.
I'm not ready for you.
Check out all of our sponsors. Go check out Double T British Kennels, Ducks Unlimited, Mitch Hall Chevrolet, Mallard Bay, Mossberg, Stanfield Outfitters, Lucky Duck, Looking Glass Podcast, Shin Gear, Dirty Duck Coffee, Dive Bomb Industries, Pacific Calls, BHP 25, MLR Graphics, Boss Shot Shells, Alpha Outdoors Specialties, and Hemp Hill Farm.